Are you ready?
Hello, and welcome to the Whole House Podcast, where you can find home, health, and family all in one place. Our team is comprised of moms from different upbringings and backgrounds, and we each have different passions and giftings and strengths. We each represent a different room, and we all make up the whole house. So grab a cup of coffee and join our overly caffeinated ladies here for the Whole House Podcast. Hi, and welcome to the Whole House. Today it's Carly,
Amerey, Kathleen, and Glenna. As always.
We're here on a really cold,
Really
should
cold.
be warmer.
Oh my
day.
gosh, why is it so cold lately?
It snowed last night.
Snowed yesterday. We're recording this in early April, but it snowed yesterday. So we want to start out. Today's episode is going to be about moms being their own advocate, and we have a lot of things we think are important in relation to this topic. But before we get started, what is your favorite fruit?
Oh my goodness, this is a hard one. I love so many fruits. I would say anything in the berry family. Strawberries, raspberries, blueberries.
That's a good one.
Anything berry. Yeah. They're all berry good.
They are very good. That's what Judah says. He tells us that the circus was very loud.
Very loud.
I also like all of those berries, but I think my number one favorite fruit is peaches. It's my husband's number
I have to
one
peel
least
those
favorite
because I
fruit.
can't like to eat the fuzz.
Are citrus fruit? Are they in there?
Yes.
Category? Okay. I have three. Can I have three favorites?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you named like four.
Lemons are probably my number one favorite. Okay, guys, listen. If you have not drank real lemon water, then you have not drank water.
Lemon water is amazing.
I'm not talking about putting a little slice that the waitress gives you in your water. I'm talking about taking a half of a lemon and
Or a whole lemon.
and squeezing it into 1 cup of water. That is my jam. Okay. I like pineapple, but pineapple makes my tongue itchy.
You know what I learned in Costa Rica is that the center of the pineapple makes your tongue itchy.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
Well, there
you're
we
not
go.
supposed to eat the center.
That
In Costa
part
Rica,
is
they just
crunchy.
cut it like in slices, and you just eat around the outside.
Oh.
Okay.
And then tomatoes. Ha ha ha! Caught you there. But really, honestly, they probably are one of my favorite. I will like fresh tomatoes or cooked tomatoes, any kind of tomatoes.
Tomato
I'll put them on.
sandwiches.
I like all fruit though.
in the summer.
Berries.
I'm not all about tomatoes. I'll eat it on a sandwich or a burger or something, but I don't like it by itself.
Yeah,
I don't
tomatoes.
like tomatoes by themselves. All right, so let's jump on into moms being their own advocate. So I think where I want to start is, how old were you when you had Cecilia?
I had just turned 22. It was
Okay.
20. Yeah.
And I think I was 23,
23.
I think. Anyways.
I was 23 when I had my first child.
Okay, so we were all about the same age when we had our first child, and we all have been accused of looking younger than we are.
Right now, I appreciate that. I didn't appreciate it as much when I was 23.
I don't appreciate it yet. So we were all young when we had our first child, and so I want to talk about young moms when you give birth. So like when you're pregnant, you're in the hospital having a baby, and then after. In my experience, my whole pregnancy, I was kind of looked at like I was a teen pregnant.
Yeah.
And if I was not with my husband, there were times where I know I was treated differently.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who will talk about when his wife was pregnant with their first, he was like walking behind her in the mall, and these old ladies sitting on a bench were like looking at her like, look at that pregnant teen. And he walked up and he said, that's my wife, and she's 23 or something like that. And you could see their faces like
Change. Yeah, like guilty.
Yeah. So I know that I think that even doctors assume when you are a young mom having your first baby, they assume you're going to have this stereotypical first birth where you're in labor for 48 hours and you end up having all the drugs and you're begging for the drugs.
And you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on.
And you have no intelligence or no education and you don't know what you're doing and you are going to listen to whatever they say.
Yes. So by no means am I downplaying or saying like, I'm sorry if you had a 48-hour birth.
Yes.
But mine was not like that. I went into pregnancy like having this feeling that he was going to come early. People told me I was crazy.
He ended up think that your baby's going to come
That's what
early.
people say.
But I knew my baby was going to come early. I was thinking 2 weeks. He came 4 weeks early.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit surprising even to me. But first of all, they thought I was crazy that I was going to have this baby early. They treated my mom that way too because I was born almost a month early.
Oh wow!
Patterns.
I didn't know that.
Patterns follow.
Yep, my birth was very similar to my mom's birth with me.
Huh. So they didn't even look into that, or
no,
they don't care about.
They don't really care about like family history and stuff. But I do remember just being treated by the nurses like I needed to be prepared for the worst. Mm-hmm. And I don't really look at it like that.
But they don't even tell you what the worst is.
No.
That's it. They don't. They're like, they sit there and they they go around you and they're doing whatever, but they don't tell you what they're doing. They don't give you any information. Yeah. They don't nothing at all.
Questions, they seem like you're being annoying. Like,
yeah.
I do want
Everything's
to know
going to be okay, honey. Just listen to what I say, honey.
Yeah. Like when we were just at Anya's birth, I guess it's going to be a couple months ago, but like we were telling Anya things. Yeah. And the nurses kept looking at us and kind of treating us like, are you sure she needs to know that? Like, yeah.
Yes. And I remember when I got to the hospital, I made it before Denny. And when Denny got there, I said, okay, let me tell you everything that's happened so far and everything that's going on. Because they didn't tell him and they weren't telling her. Yeah. I was telling her, here's what's going to happen next.
Well, and when I had Judah, like, I remember walking in there, and I told them, like, I want as little medical intervention as possible. Mm-hmm. So, like, a key piece of this is just knowing what you want.
Exactly.
Like, if you know that you don't want an epidural or you don't want pain medication, like, I pretty much, or if you don't want to be pressured into having a C-section, like to exhaust all the options. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I remember like going in, and they kind of assumed. Well, first they assumed I was not in labor.
Yeah,
they treated me like I was. They were going to send me back home.
Yeah,
they didn't believe that my water had broken.
Yeah.
So they finally decided I was going to have a baby. But they just left me alone for my entire labor. It was like 4 hours. And I think they checked me once. They checked on me once. And then I called the nurse, and I was like, I'm ready to push. And she was like, oh, okay. Like, it was a shock that I was there for, 4 hours before I had my baby. But they just assumed that I was going to be in labor for, multiple hours.
Well, I was different than you, Carly, and I wish I would have been more verbal about things because I did go in. I had contractions for a couple days. And, like, Mom and Dad came over to my house, and because I started going into pretty intense labor like 2 days before I had Celia, like a labor where I couldn't walk around. And then they just stopped. They would start and stop and start and stop. My contractions would. And then when I finally went into the hospital, when they were 3 minutes apart, they were like, two medical students checked me. And they were like, yeah, you're 6 centimeters. And so then I went in they checked me in or whatever, and I went into the room. Quinn, you think this is funny? Yeah. this isn't funny. I went into the room, and then my midwife came in, and she was like, I really think, because I was up walking around, and they were like, she was like, I really think that they were wrong, that I'm going to check you, but you're probably going to be going home. I don't want you to get too comfy. And then by the time she checked me, I was already 7 centimeters. And then, so she was like, well, I guess that you're going to stay here. And I was like,
Really?
But then after that, I was nervous, and like all moms are during labor, and I kind of just let them do what they wanted to me. And I did want an epidural, but it's still everything still went really poorly. I got an epidural, and then they gave it to me way too early. Well, yeah, it made me sick. They gave it to me way too early, so I couldn't move around to get my contractions moving, and so I got stuck at 7. And then they had to give me push Pitocin, and I throw up 5 or 6 times. And then, so she came super fast. So then she came super fast after they pushed the Pitocin, and I tore so horribly. And they didn't tell me, literally, they didn't tell me anything. Nobody talked to me the whole entire time. Nobody talked to me. Now, I have had positive other birth experiences because I found another midwife who I work with. I love her. I will have all my babies with her. And then she has a replacement coming in, and her replacement is just like her. Well, it's going to be her partner for a while before she retires. And so I'm super excited about that. But my first birth experience was horrible, and I didn't even know it was bad then. I didn't know that was not what it should be then.
And no wonder we have so many women, with PTSD surrounding birth when they're pressured into this terrible situation.
We are watching Spirit movies.
Awesome.
They're watching Spirit.
They're watching Spirit.
Well, and to follow that, Carly, if some women only have 1 or 2 children, they never have the time or educate themselves because they just think that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And even though I think that I do have some PTSD from having a pretty decent delivery,
but fast,
just fast, and a bad tear and bad recovery. So I think that kind of clouds a little bit my decision to have more children. But I just wonder, how many women don't want to have more babies because of a terrible birth experience, and we don't offer, recovery from.
Right, and that's why we need to talk about this subject because, of course, my oldest is 30, but with all 3 of the 7 that I birthed, it was the same. I would go in the hospital and they would be like, "Oh, honey, you're not in labor.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about." And the same kind of experience that you guys had, and it was just, being patronized and being, told that you don't know what you're talking about, and we know our own bodies. And I know there are lots of times that women panic and go into the hospital, and get sent home. But you know what? It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
And I knew myself, in fact, when, especially with the 3rd one, when I went in and I said I'm in labor, and I just stood there and said I'm in labor, and they said, "No, you're not."
Well, they treated me like I wasn't because I wasn't dying from contractions.
That's what I was going to say. Is people labor differently.
Yeah.
And I don't with Glenna, my last one. I walked into the hospital at 8.5 centimeters.
Yeah.
I walked around. The front door of the hospital was locked because it was the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I walked around the hospital into the ER. Told them I didn't want a wheelchair because I didn't want to sit down.
You don't want to slow your labor.
Yeah, I didn't want to sit down. I went to the elevator, got on the elevator, walked to labor and delivery. And then they were the nurses, which, like I said, my midwife's different now. She believed me, but because I had been texting her the whole time. But the nurses were like, you probably still have a way to go. So let's get you settled in. And Gail came in. Sorry, I was trying not to say her name, but she came in. She was like, "Well, you're gonna have a baby in like an hour," and I'm like, "Yes, I am," because
right, because we, especially after the first, then you recognize your body,
right,
and you're one of the things that Carly was saying about being pressured.
Right.
Whenever you put together a birth plan, you need to remember not to be pressured to change your mind, because people still tell me I'm crazy, but I never had an epidural.
Right.
I didn't want an epidural because I don't do well with medication, and I know that about myself.
Yeah.
I don't even do well with cold medication. Yeah. Like cold medication gives me this weird fuzzy feeling that I guess that's why people take drugs, but I don't like that feeling at all. I don't like feeling out of
when I was in
control.
The hospital. I think I took Motrin for my pain for I don't take pain medication. I don't take Tylenol or anything like that regularly. So I was feeling pretty decent from the Motrin, but it was starting to wear off. Yeah. But I wasn't due for another dose of it. So I asked her, I meant when am I due for another dose of Motrin? She took it as I needed more pain medication and gave me a Percocet.
Oh my God.
And I was loopy. I was dropping my child. I was falling asleep.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, don't give me that again.
Right.
So,
that's great.
Yeah. I know that about myself too.
Yeah.
I don't do well with those kinds of medications, so I didn't want any of that.
So I would say to avoid these kind of experiences, if you haven't had your baby yet.
Yeah.
Before you call the number one, OBGYN in your city or whatever, you do your research. There are tons of Facebook groups, mothering Facebook groups, and I'm sure there's there's one for your area. Whatever, do your research and ask people and pay attention to what people ask. Questions like, what OBGYN or midwife do you like that pays attention to you, that answers your questions, that communicates with you, that listens to you, because there are lots of really good doctors out there and really good midwives out there that people say they're good because they treat you well through the whole they make sure you stay healthy through your whole pregnancy, but then when labor and delivery comes, they do what we were just talking about. They treat you like, I know better than you.
Yeah.
So you just need to sit there and I'll control your labor. Yeah. So I would say to get your information, and then and also throughout your throughout your birth. Hi, baby. Hi, sweetie. My children are here. Can you tell? Educate yourself. Yeah. To educate yourself throughout your pregnancy. Talk to other moms. Everything like that, and ask them brutally.
Really? Yeah. Personal experience is probably the best way to decide what doctor or midwife you would like to go with.
Yeah.
And I'll even say, so as far as post-birth goes, I wish I would have known to advocate for myself better.
Yes.
I know now, since I've done more research.
Yeah.
But I remember going in to my 6-week appointment and saying, I have pain that is the same level as, 4 or 5 days after birth.
Yeah.
And, she looked at the surface and says, everything looks fine. It must just be some scar tissue. But now I know that, now I've done reading, there's a whole...
there's a hole inside of you, first of all.
And they're not trained to look past the surface. I probably had some deep...
tissue tear. Yeah.
And they are not even... They're not even... really trained to look at that, and so now that I would know that's probably what I had, I could have asked them to look better.
Exactly.
But so
and ask, and I wish I would have known to ask questions after labor and push.
Yeah,
for
I don't
answers.
even know how many stitches I
Yeah,
had. They never told me.
Like after I had Cecilia, I knew I got stitches, and then I knew that like I had a year-long recovery, a long recovery.
I didn't even feel good until 8 months later.
Yeah, and
that's not. I don't think that's a normal.
No, that's not normal.
You don't have to feel bad for 8 months.
Because I had Glenna, and literally at the end of like 2 months, I was like, I feel pretty okay.
Yeah.
And she's my third.
Yeah.
With Cecilia, I was pregnant with Glenna, and I went back and I watched the videos of like Cecilia being born, and us talking, and there's this video of Seth and I are holding her and talking about what name, like her name and what name we want to give her. And so, and my midwife in the background, and this is the first time I hear it, and this is 4 years after Cecilia has been born. Okay? She goes, well, you're not going to be able to repair that. I don't even know if a plastic surgeon can repair that. We'll see how many stitches this needs. And like, I could not, I was so mad in that moment.
There.
Yes. And the thing was, is that, yeah, sure, I wasn't paying attention to what, she wasn't even talking to me though.
Yeah.
She didn't say that to me.
Talking about you.
Yeah, she was talking about me to the person standing next to her. She never told me that. And when I asked her,
don't you think we need to know what's wrong with
when
our
I
bodies?
asked her if I tore, she was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna need like a few stitches."
Yeah.
That's what she told me. Yeah. And now I have a scar down there that my new midwife has told me it's gonna tear there every time.
Yeah.
No matter how easy your labor is, no matter how everything works, it's always going to tear there.
Yeah.
And that, like, basically, so doing everything that they told me to do, because I wasn't even listening. They didn't even encourage me to listen to my body when I was pushing. They just told me to push.
Oh, yeah.
So what they did caused my body to be damaged.
Possible.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
He came out so fast.
I know. Which Cecilia came out fast too, but the point is that
his face was bruised.
It's like I should have been listening to my body, and that they didn't even encourage me to do that. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. So let's move on to.
Don't be terrified to have a baby now, guys.
We'll tell you the great things.
Yeah,
we should.
We should tell you the great things.
Babies are so cuddly.
Oh my goodness! Look at this. You can't see her, but this one keeps leaning up against me today and cuddling me and smiling at me.
So let's talk about like being your own advocate when it comes to breastfeeding.
Oh yes.
Because Amerey has breastfed 3 babies.
3 babies.
And I've breastfed 1.
Yeah.
Through multiple naysayers about what is best for your baby.
People who are close to you, people who don't even know you.
Yep. And above and beyond, like, you are the one who gets to decide what is best for you and your child.
Yes.
Whether that is exclusive breastfeeding, exclusive pumping,
yes.
a combination of breastfeeding and formula, like whatever works for you is best for you.
Yes.
And if your baby needs extra, like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But the key is being educated yourself.
Being educated and knowing what it means for your baby to need extra and things like that.
Yes.
Knowing signs.
And we are coming off of like 2 generations of women who were not encouraged to breastfeed.
Yes.
Like doctors actually advocated for formula feeding. Because back then, the research wasn't there. They thought that was best.
Yeah.
Which so now, like,
so weird to think about, to
really
think that your body naturally makes food for your baby, and to think
perfect food for your baby,
and to look at what your body naturally does and be like, that's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, okay, so my grandma, she's in her 80s, but she was actually told in the 60s, or well, like late 50s.
Yeah.
She was actually told that her milk was no good. It wasn't good. So she had to dry it up.
Oh my God.
And she'll tell me, like, she leaked for months. If your body is so persistent on producing milk, but your doctor tells you that it's no good.
Yeah.
Right, and there's periods in our history.
Well, that's what we just said.
In the 1800s,
there's
even.
like 2-3 generations that were not educated, not.
Well, you go back to the
encouraged.
1800s, and there were periods of time where people thought it was better to feed your
cow milk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or to
condensed.
Yeah. And so, things change. And I can remember my mom telling me, who was just told that it was better to take your baby, prop them up on the couch, and stick a bottle in their mouth, which my mom didn't do.
Right.
But
Your
that's
mom was
what. Yeah,
queen of natural.
Yeah.
Queen of crunch.
So, but that's what she was being told in the 60s.
Yeah.
Because her mother-in-law told her that.
Yeah.
So that was my granny, who was in the 60s. My granny was in her 60s. So, it's just a cycle of misinformation, miseducation.
Yeah. So now we know that
we
the
have-
education, like, the information is out there for you. If
Yes.
you educate yourself on, like, you know, what styles of parenting are good for you, like breastfeeding if you want to, if you don't, like, as long as you know what you want and what you think is best for your child, you have to advocate for that, or
and
something
you
else is gonna
advocate
happen.
from the moment that they're born, because if I know Carly experienced this, and I experienced this in the hospital. We knew we wanted to breastfeed, and the nurses still an exclusive breastfeed.
Yes,
and they still came in and were like,
they actually,
"Do you want a pump?"
They actually gave Judah a bottle.
Yeah, and a bottle. Yeah,
and did not set it up as if it was my choice.
Yes.
To say, like, they knew I wanted to breastfeed exclusively.
Yeah.
And they still gave him a bottle in the name of, like, testing his blood sugar.
Oh my goodness, I have a story about that after you're done saying
And
that.
they're like, so I know that my baby had been, like, in the world for 30 minutes, and they gave him a bottle of formula.
Yeah.
And he gulped a bunch of it down.
And then spit it.
Let Gabe feed it to him like it was a happy thing. I didn't want that at all. And, like, I felt wrong the whole time. And my child spit up and had trouble latching for over a week, spit up for months. And I just look back and I wonder, like, what issues that he had, and we had a great like breastfeeding relationship after that, but like having to wean him off of a nipple shield because they gave him a bottle. Yeah, the first thing he had was a bottle, and so it's not like I'm ashamed of that, but I almost blocked it out of my brain. Like when Amerey said that, it came back.
And that's taking the power of choice for your child from you and giving it to someone who really isn't going to be in their life ever again.
They didn't even give me the option of, like, let's let you... I mean, they let him latch first, but then they were like, we need to give him this bottle. They didn't even give me the option of just nursing him to check his blood sugar. They thought he needed this.
Right.
And I just... It upsets me now, but... I know better. I know better now. Like, I could have said, no, I would like to nurse him.
Yeah. And professionals are wonderful, and they have all kinds of education, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yes.
But there's nothing better than your mother's instinct, and you should have the power to choose for your child.
Yeah.
And you need to be informed, but at the same time, you need to push for the fact that they're going to ask you first. Like, do not do anything without my permission.
And they didn't set it up as if I had the option to choose.
That goes back
we're
to
giving him a bottle.
Yeah, that goes back to them assuming, like, thinking like you don't know anything, so just let us handle it.
I literally took my breastfeeding books to the hospital with me for information, and this still happened to me.
Yeah.
So, like, I know that I could have been better educated and more outspoken.
Yeah, my friend just had, and I'll tell a story about my experience with breastfeeding in just a second, but my friend just had her baby, and the nurses were very, like, persistent about the fact that they knew what was better. They knew what was better. And the thing was that he latched as soon as he was born. And all this stuff, and he was doing amazing breastfeeding and all of those kind of things. And then he was about to eat, and they took him away for some, like, testing, which they do. Some hospitals take the baby out of the room, some don't, for the, like, the heel prick. And all that kind of stuff. And they took him out, and now he had just gotten his heel prick and all of this, and they said that the nurse, so he was out of the room, and the nurses told her he was having tremors, quote unquote. So they assumed his blood sugar was low, so they gave him a bottle while he was out of the room, away from her. They just told her when she came back. They were like, don't worry, we gave him a bottle. And she was so mad, and her husband was so mad. And the crazy thing is that her husband is in nursing school, and that he was like, I cannot believe that you just did that to my child. And so, like, there are instances where there are mothers who come into the hospital who do not know anything. Who don't know anything and who really do need help.
Yeah.
And there, in those instances, nurses who are there to feed your baby and to help educate you in some kind of way, they're great. But if you're listening to this podcast, that's not you. If you are doing this kind of research, that's not you. And when Cecilia was, I've had people say things to me about my other two children, but I'm a mama bear now, and I know what I'm going to do. I don't worry about what people say, and I don't really worry if I offend them when I say something to them. When they're like, oh, well, maybe you need to supplement. Just happened with my third one. This is my third baby.
Or telling you that your 4-month-old wants food.
Yeah, breastfed. I have breastfed all my first two, and still and definitely will with this one. Breastfed all my children for 2 years. Okay, healthy, super healthy. Never needed any food, like any supplement of food, until they started wanting to eat actual food, which I still breastfed them then.
Well, and if you look it up, you will have people tell you that if your 5-month-old is reaching for your plate, they need food. Yeah. But there are signs for being ready for food. Right. And that is what you should go by. Right. And
like my 8-month-old still can't even, I put something in her mouth and she can't swallow it. She just pushes it around in her mouth.
Signs.
She doesn't, she's not going to eat.
Yeah. Well, my son did not, he had no interest in food until he was almost 1.
Neither
and I had
my
people
None of my kids did.
Grandparents telling me he needs to eat food, and it just...
Well, when Cecilia was 2.5 months old, my certain family members had me, we were traveling with these certain family members, and had me super stressed about the fact that now Cecilia was a colicky baby. And honestly, looking back on it now, because Galena can't have dairy. Now she has a milk protein allergy, but before it was irritated her stomach. She had an immature gut, which Cecilia probably didn't. I just didn't know then. Yeah. But so she was colicky, she was fussy, and she wanted to eat all the time. She was a cluster she didn't eat. She ate all the time, guys. Yeah. I'm not exaggerating.
Which is normal for
breastfed babies.
Because breast milk is designed...
You can't measure breast milk.
No, and it's designed to be
digested quickly. Yeah. So I had on this family trip, I had certain family members tell me, more than one, that she was hungry and I needed to give her formula. They went to the store and I was stressed. I was to the point of tears because I was feeling guilty. They made me feel like a horrible mother for breastfeeding, for taking care of my baby the way that I was taking care of her, for wanting to go out of the room to breastfeed her because it helped her be alone to breastfeed, and they made me feel horrible. They went to the store, they bought formula, they made me leave the room so that they could give her a bottle, because they were like, she won't take a bottle while you're in the room. And so I was in the other room weeping and weeping and weeping about the fact that which not that formula is bad. I didn't think that formula was bad. It was just that I felt like a horrible parent. I did.
Well, and they were basically manipulating.
They were manipulating
into thinking
me.
they knew better what was for your child.
Exactly. And what happened was I ended up coming out, and because they were all waiting for Cecilia to calm down so that we could go out to dinner. I ended up going and getting my husband and bringing him back and said, give me back my baby. You guys go to dinner. I'm staying here. And he wasn't like upset that I said that to him, even though I was upset. And he got the baby and they left. And everybody else, all these family members, they were upset. They were upset about the fact that I was staying there and that they couldn't get the baby to calm down. And I was furious. And I ended up calling my mom. She's not here right now. She's with my children who keep coming in to find me. I ended up calling my mom and crying to her and telling her what happened. And she was really mad. And she was like, and she just kept telling me, she was like, you are the mom. You know best. Don't let them tell you what to do. Yeah. Don't let them tell you what to do. And those certain family members still pushed me. I went down months and months and months later, almost a year later, to visit one of those family members, and she told me that her, like, I think Cecilia was 10 months old, and she wasn't eating solid foods because she wasn't interested in them. She didn't want them at all. So she was still breastfeeding, and I had that certain family member be like, my babies were done breastfeeding by 8 months old, so she probably needs to wrap it up.
Good for you.
And I was like,
yeah.
Well, so, she said that she made them be done by 8 months old. Yeah. So, yeah.
So you will face, if you care about breastfeeding, you are definitely going to face people who think that nursing a baby past 1 is weird or...
Yeah. And study,
and
like,
it's not.
Yeah, every scientific study shows that nursing on demand is what you're supposed to do. Breastfed babies are not like bottle-fed babies. You cannot feed them one time and every 2 hours. Yeah. And then they will breastfeed multiple times throughout multiple hours, no matter what. And for longer, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 10 minutes.
And we will say, it's not always convenient.
It's not fun.
It's not always fun. It's not always convenient.
Yeah.
But, like, having a great breastfeeding relationship with your baby...
It's the best.
...is, like, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
And it is not all, like, wearing a beautiful flowy dress and you look like the most beautiful mother in the world.
You get, I mean...
Rays of sunshine shining down on you.
In the beginning, it can hurt.
Yeah.
Throughout... Sorry, I'm coughing. Throughout breastfeeding, there are moments in time where it still hurts.
Yeah.
Like things, your milk gets clogged.
Yes.
There are things that happen, but it's 100% worth it.
It is.
Yeah.
And I can say, like, I think it makes me a little bit sad to say, like, I think that I'm done breastfeeding. It's been 2 nights now.
That's so sad, Carly.
I know. 2 nights ago, he didn't ask for it, and then last night he did, and we're only down to, like, just at bedtime. And I'm not even, my body is not
dry.
making milk anymore, so it's getting to be, like, a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But he asked last night, and I was like, well, let's tell a story in bed instead.
Yeah.
So I think that
Moira still
I'm
asked.
done.
Yeah, that's so... So I remember when I was done breastfeeding Moira, and I was really dry, and I was about to give birth to Glenna, and so she asked me one night, and I was like, sweetie, I just don't think that we're gonna do it. And she wasn't upset about it, and that's a good sign that like you're ready. But I cried. Cecilia was like, Seth and Cecilia were in the room, and Cecilia was like, why is mommy crying? And Seth was just like, just let her cry. Yeah. This is a hard thing. It is.
Well, and when I realized that my body wasn't making milk anymore because he was only nursing at bedtime, like at first, the first day I explained to him, like, I think that the milks are gonna be done. Yeah. Like, that's the language we use about it.
Yeah, exactly. So Moira called it I forever.
Judah says mulps. Mulps.
Oh.
But I had to explain to him, like, I think the mulps are done.
Yeah.
My body's not making milk anymore.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, he goes, silly milks, why you do that? So the last few
Silly
nights,
mulps.
like last week, he was telling me, so you're gonna grow more mulps. And I was like, no, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, I was explaining to him, like, if I have another baby, that baby will drink milk.
Yeah.
But I think that since you're a big boy now,
Yeah.
you're going to be
It's so
done drinking
hard.
milk. It is so hard. So it's been like, I just had this realization last night that I think it's over.
Yeah.
And it's
sad.
I've not properly
Mourn it.
grieved to this
Yes.
yet.
Mourn it to its
Yeah.
full extent. Yeah.
But so
And then have more babies, because that's what I do.
we'll see.
I know.
I'm the odd one out here. That
I know.
I only have one, and I'm pretty satisfied for now. But yeah, okay.
Yes.
Anyways, so
Do what you're comfortable with.
do what you're comfortable with. If you want one, or if you want a billion.
A
like
billion.
Amerey.
I just have to keep having them, because every time they grow out of the baby stage, I weep. And then I'm like, okay, another baby.
Oh boy, my body's not ready for that. So we talked a little bit about this, but just knowing what parenting style you're all about, and we
Yes.
talk a lot about parenting styles
Yes.
here on the Whole House, but we're pretty attachment parenting oriented
Oh, yeah.
here, and if that's not for you, that's fine. But just knowing what you want,
Yeah.
and if it's different from the way your parents parented you,
Yes.
that's okay, and you're allowed to say, like, personally, I don't want guns
Yeah.
to be a thing in my house, where, like, it's not a big deal to a lot of other people. So even my husband sometimes, like, thinks that I'm a little bit crazy, because even this morning I didn't want Judah to watch a Woody Woodpecker cartoon, because they were just candidly, like, shooting guns at each other, and I think that's just not something I want my child to grow up with. But that's just me. And I have the say to say that I don't want him to watch, shows with guns in them. I don't want to play shooting games. But my family is not really, they don't feel that way. They don't think it's a big deal. And I remember a little bit differently. I read a story about how this young mom was in the grocery store with her mother and her baby, and the baby was in the cart, and the grandma was pushing the baby in the cart and, like, giving him candy and stuff in the checkout line, and the young mom said, like, Mom, don't give him that, like, we haven't even had lunch yet. And the grandmother looked at her daughter and said, I'm his grandmother, and I'll spoil him if I want to. And I just remember being really upset by that story, that, like, it's just undermining the parent of the toddler or the baby. Like, if even that young, seeing the way, like, a mother's rights are being taken away, like, that's not okay. I don't think that's okay. And so just being strong, standing up for yourself, for what type of parenting styles you want, whether that means you don't want your kids to have extra sugar or red dye, whatever it means for you. You are your advocate, and you are your child's advocate. And so, yeah. So above and beyond all that we have talked about,
Yes.
we just want to say that being education is the key.
Is the key
educated
to being your own advocate.
on what you think is best for you and your baby, or your older child.
Yes.
Like,
Exactly.
it is possible, if you're not educated on what you want, to be pressured or talked into something that you don't want.
Yes.
And so we want you to be an advocate for yourself.
So, yeah.
And I really would like to do a second, like a follow-up episode on this, specifically on advocating for your child.
Yes.
Because there are a whole there are a whole lot of other topics that
Other
can go along
topics,
with
yes.
that.
Yes, exactly.
I don't want to get into it right now.
I know. We would
we'll
start
talk for
another
hour.
podcast
Yeah.
right at the end of this one.
But yeah, we really thank you if you made it this long. It's
Yes.
been kind of long.
It has been a long one,
long
but we've given you a lot of good stories.
We do have a lot of good stories. This is kind of like the conversation that happens anytime you get together with other moms. We
Yeah.
just all, I don't know is it weird to like share birth stories and stuff like that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Because there were women who did it at my Christmas party. So if you can do it at a Christmas party, then I think you can do it. Then women do it anywhere.
Yeah. So if you want to share,
Yeah.
if you need to talk about like, if
Yeah.
you need to work through any trauma related to,
Or if
being
you need
undermined
advice,
in
yes.
parenting, if you want advice, like we're always here for you to reach out to.
Yes.
You can message us. But we thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Yes.
And we'll see you back here next time at the Whole House. Bye.
Bye.
We're so glad you could join us here for the Whole House podcast. Please subscribe, and if you give us a review, we might pick our favorite and send you a prize. Please remember to like the Whole House Facebook page and follow us on Instagram at _whole_house. And please sign up with your email on our website, thewholehouse.org, to be notified when new things are happening here at the Whole House. Thanks so much for listening.